everybody. How are you tonight? Well, oh, look at that. I just shrunk myself. Oh, yes. Well, welcome to another story in art as I fix my overlay. Yes, lock your overlay. That's the trick here. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here for a premiere here of Story in Art. I'm in Africa right now, so I am not able to live stream. I'm too many hours difference, and I'm also kind of focused on my photography there, but I didn't want to leave you without stories. Tonight is, I thought I'd go back to the author illustrator Jeanette Winter, that we love so many of her books. These are a couple of her more serious books about environment, about people that have made a difference, and about events that have made a difference. Some events that should have made a greater impact on us, one of them, and brought more consciousness in my mind. And another story about someone who has not given up and has made a great deal of change, and in the light of recent signings of bills about climate change, yay, and protection, then yeah, I thought it was appropriate that we have these. So the first book that I want to share takes us on kind of a historical journey of a place and a time that happened, that I remember distinctly when this happened. It is by Jonah Winter, who I believe, well, we'll find out at the end of the book. It might have some information related to Jeanette Winter. It's a book called Oil, and it is a book about well, most of you will remember when the Exxon Valdez ran aground in Alaska and what happened with that. So that is the name for this book. It's called Oil. How are you doing down here? Oops, there's no picture there. There it is. Yeah, I just hadn't gotten that one up. So this is Oil by Jonah Winter and Jeanette Winter. From deep inside the earth it comes, hot and black, black and hot, up through the ground of the far, far north, pumped by machines all day long, all night long, day after day, year after year, pumped by machines designed and run by humans all day long, all night long. Oil. Pumped into a giant pipeline that crosses 800 miles of wilderness. Oil. Flowing mile after mile. Across the tundra, across what had been unspoiled land, home to native people. And thousands of caribou, oil flowing onward. To a port on the ocean, oil. Pumped into enormous ships to be transported farther still. One night, one such ship containing oil embarks on its journey out onto the clean, cold ocean water, gliding past gigantic icebergs, moving swiftly through the night, and then clang, crack, the ship runs aground onto a reef beneath the surface of the ocean. And just like that, oil gushes out of holes, some of them as big as a house. Oil. Bubbling up to the surface of the water, thick black oil spreading, till black waves fall with a thud onto rocky beaches, rocks that had been clean for millions of years are now black and glistening with oil. But some of the rocks aren't rocks at all. They are seabirds and sea otters, thousands of them dead and dying. There are some people who try to help. They bring the struggling otters and birds to a rescue center. They bathe the birds and otters, wash away the oil. But most of the animals die, and the oil keeps spreading and spreading and spreading for days, weeks, months, till the oil covers thousands of miles of ocean. "30 years later, there are thousands of sea otters once again. There are thousands of seabirds once again. But this place is not the same. The herring are gone. Many of the killer whales are gone, never to return. For native people who have fished here for thousands of years, things are not the same. Their way of life still has not recovered. And the beaches may look clean, but if you lift a rock, oil seeps up." And so this was more than 30 years ago, as it said in the book. This was in 1977. I remember it really clearly. So we're talking 50 years now, a little less, 45. It's a true story that took place in Alaska in 1977. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline System was completed. The 800-mile pipeline originating on Prudhoe Bay and crossing over what had been pristine land occupied by native Alaskans for centuries and home to many different animals. The pipeline was designed to transport the oil from Prudhoe Bay to the harbor at Valdez on Prince William Sound, where it could be transported on ships. On March 24th of 1989, so I guess it was 89 and 2030, yeah, 30 years ago. A ship full of oil called the Exxon Valdez ran aground in Prince William Sound on Bly Reef at 12:04 a.m., causing what at the time was the largest oil spill in U.S. waters at the time. 11 million gallons of oil unfortunately spilled from the ship into the ocean, and the oil spill covered an area of 11,000 square miles and washed up on 1,300 miles of shoreline. No exact count of how many animals died as a result of the spill. However, 36,000 dead seabirds were recovered, though it's thought that somewhere in between 350,000 and 390,000 seabirds died. Nearly 1,000 dead sea otters were recovered. Most of the recovered living otters died soon after being rescued. There's no telling how many more thousands died, though. All the eagles that had lived in this area were killed, and 151 of them were found. All in all, 90 different bird species suffered deaths due to the oil spill. Includes all kinds of animals there. Ugh. One pod of killer whales living in Prince William Sound lost 15 of its 22 members, and there had been no calves born since the oil spill, meaning that this pod will someday disappear. Gray whales, sea lions, seals all suffered injury and death from the oil. There's no estimate on how many fish died, probably in the millions, but the herring that had been plentiful in this area were completely wiped out. We have a good friend who I've known him since as long as I met him, same time I met Bob, and he and Bob went to high school together, who was a commercial fisherman. And he would go to Alaska every year, and he fished herring before this time. Boy, did it change. his life and so many others. Um, the ultimate tragedy is that this oil spill was not a learning experience. Not only would more spills happen after this, but an oil spill far worse would happen in the Gulf of Mexico on April 20th of 2010. An oil drilling rig called the Deepwater Horizon exploded, killing 11 workers, spilling 210 million gallons of oil into the Gulf and killing far more animals than the Exxon Valdez did. Meanwhile, the oil industry makes nearly $6 million a day just from oil in Alaska, and the oil companies continue to have the power to pressure governments into allowing them to drill for oil and transport it through the pipelines and on the ships, where there's always the potential for disaster. Oh, all of us who use oil are partly responsible for oil spills such as the ones described in this book, and for the climate change, which is also caused by the oil and is an even bigger problem than oil spills. If climate change continues at its current rate, it has the power to wipe out much of the life on this planet. Unless we learn to rely on alternate forms of energy such as wind and solar power, our dependence on oil will make the Earth uninhabitable for many life forms, including humans. Yeah. So this is one of those kind of books that can really start the conversations when you're reading them with kids. Of course, it takes a different level of different age group that you do, but even with adults, um, to have the kind of facts like this laid out this simply, and then have the follow up, it it can really, I think, um, yes, it is a definite opinion of one side of the opinion, but the points still are so completely valid and so completely real of what happened, what actually happened. Now, the next book and the other one on this is on climate change, on someone who has made a big statement about climate change, and not necessarily someone who, as an adults don't have all the power. And in this case, the power came from a little girl. Our house is on fire. Greta Thunberg's call to save the planet. You are never too small to make a difference. Greta Thunberg. Greta is a quiet girl who led a quiet life in the city of Stockholm. Her dog, Roxy, was her friend. All my life I've been invisible. The invisible girl in the back who doesn't say anything. In school, she felt alone. One day, Greta's teacher talked to the class about the climate and about how our planet is getting warmer, about how the polar ice is melting, about how animals' lives are threatened, and ours too. That's when Greta's life changed. She read for hours and watched film after film about our warming world. Greta could think about one thing for a long, long time. She saw ice melting into the sea, disappearing. She saw mighty winds and torrential rains howling across the land. She saw coral reefs deep down in the sea, pale as ghosts, bleached by the warming waters. Greta saw living creatures everywhere struggling to stay alive. Greta saw floodwaters covering houses and people and animals. She saw cities swallowed by rising oceans. Look at this artwork. She saw smoldering sun scorch the earth, leaving it bone dry. She saw blazing wildfires racing through the forests. Our house is on fire. Greta became sad thinking about the climate all the time. She barely ate or spoke. Those pictures were stuck in my mind. The sad days went on for a long time, each day more unhappy than the last. There might not be a world to live in when she grows up. What use is school without a future? What can I do? She wondered. Greta decided to go on strike from school for the climate. Her parents understood. Greta skipped school one Friday and took her poster, School Strike for Climate, to the Parliament building to sit on strike. She hoped lawmakers would see her. People walked past, too busy to notice. Greta was invisible there, too. She was at the Parliament building every Friday, even in the rain. Then word of her strike began to spread. Little by little, other school strikers joined her. On Fridays, Stockholm schools were a bit empty. More people started noticing the child strikers, and word spread through cyberspace about the Friday school strikes. Band, paro, strike, apergia, werkfall, strach, wagon. Children started striking everywhere. If grown-ups won't act to save the planet, children will. Oops. I went one too far. Come on, go back. Oh, it's not going back. There. Oh, there we go. The quiet girl, who always felt invisible, was asked to speak to very important people at the United Nations climate talks in Poland. Greta only spoke when she thought it was necessary. You say you love your children above all else, and yet you are stealing their future in front of their very eyes. We need to keep the fossil fuels in the ground. The quiet girl was invited to speak to important people at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. It was necessary to speak. I don't want you to be hopeful. I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear I feel every day. I want you to act as if the house is on fire, because it is. Greta's protest, all alone, sparked a worldwide children's march. Her quiet voice, joined by thousands of voices, became a roar. Can you hear us? The water is rising. Science, not silence. Don't burn my future. Denial is not a policy. Global warming is not healthy. You're destroying our future. There is no planet. Keep oil in the ground. It's our future. Safer. Stop hot mess. What will you do? Greta Thunberg was 15 years old when she first skipped school on one Friday to strike for climate change in front of a Swedish parliament building in Stockholm. Her lone call to action on August 20th of 2018 sparked a children's movement that was led to Friday school strikes in many countries and culminated in a worldwide Friday march on March 15th of 2019. Pretty amazing. One young girl, what she could do. Oh, yeah. Beautiful work that Jeanette Winter does with her art, and in using her art to bring to light different people, different situations, different events, things that are not always, things or people that are not always well known, well understood, sometimes controversial, sometimes just ignored. But the impact that these people have have had is really important, or these events have had are really important, and for us to remember them, and for her to find a way to put them, to use her art to communicate that. I find that just super inspiring, or I don't know, just hopeful. Hopeful. Hmm. Yeah. Anyway, you guys, that's it for tonight. Thanks for being with me for Story and Art. Yeah, maybe because I have a feeling I'm going to be in such a beautiful place when you're hearing these stories that still is struggling with all kinds of conflict about the animals and about the needs of water and everything, that I felt the real need to um, have this on the climate change and on what we do, because I'm in a place that is right now is their climate is changing as much as ours is. And so I'm going to see that firsthand. I'll come home, share it with you, see what I see. But still, just felt right to share these books with you while I'm there. And so until next time, keep looking for the beauty hidden in plain sight. It's not always the standard idea of beauty. Sometimes it's a beauty that causes us to think or makes us a little uncomfortable, but it's still beauty in its own way, hidden in plain sight. So until next time, take care.
All we need is a place to be and a few good friends for some company. If you'd like to stay, you don't have to leave. We'll leave the lights on and the door unlocked. If you drop on by, you don't have to knock. We're happy to share whatever we've got.